Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Ian Evans. I am the President and CEO of eTech. Before we get started, just our standard housekeeping items. All attendees have been put on listen-only mode. This webinar will be recorded, and we will be sending a link to the recording within a couple of days. We will have a question and answer period after the presentation, and you can submit your questions in the chat. If you can't hear us or see the presentation, please message us in the chat. This presentation covers the dark web, and today we will take a deep dive into the dark web. We will look at your digital risk and how to protect your most important assets. I would like to introduce my team for the webinar today, Corey and Simon. Corey Evans is a business development associate. Corey will be presenting today, and Seimer Principio. Seimer is a cybersecurity analyst, and she will also be presenting. A little bit about our company. eTech is a turnkey managed services provider. Our services provided include system support and IT consulting, cybersecurity audits, network and security assessments, cybersecurity awareness training and webinars, data protection services, including intelligent business continuity and disaster recovery services. We are experts in website hosting, development, design, and security. We also provide IMIS consulting, IMIS hosting, and IMIS maintenance. IMIS is the #1 member engagement software portal in the world. Wow, Simon, how did you get this one here so quick? Wow. We are very excited to be recognized as as #1 in Canada among the world's premier managed service providers. We are also voted 14th in the world, so we are very excited to be voted #1 in our country. The MSP 501 is the world's first largest and most comprehensive survey and ranking list in the IT channel. And also we are celebrating 15 years as an IT company. For our agenda, we will first take a look at the cybersecurity issues surrounding users, and in particular those facing small business and not-for-profits. We will review some of the most recent data breaches and compromises in this year, 2020. Corey will take a deep dive into the dark web, where we will distinguish between the surface web, the deep and dark web, and look at some examples in the virtual black market. We will also discuss how breaches are happening, focusing on the top 3, and finally, how we can protect against these compromises. It is not by accident that cybersecurity awareness is becoming so prevalent right now, and that users are finding themselves on the front line of protecting themselves and their employers. Email phishing remains a top security threat. Now more than ever, they're even harder to spot, with thieves using information from social media to personalize their attacks against your customers and your business. A disaster, yes, a disaster can strike at any time to any business. Just because you have a backup plan, it does not mean your data is safe, let alone easy accessible in case of technical or natural disaster. Of course, COVID, we are experiencing that right now. The consequences of a disaster on an underprotected company can mean unwanted expenses, lost revenue, embarrassment to your company, and of course, loss of business. Even if you can preserve the data, it is extremely important to recover systems quickly to avoid downtime. Everything has changed. COVID-19 continues to cause tremendous challenges for everyone. Now our public health officials and officers are warning us of a second wave. Even going for a meal is still a challenge. It is a massive change for everyone. The pandemic is a global team effort to flatten the curve. What is our collective mission? Well, one, we have to work from home. That's what we're doing. Practice social and physical distancing and wear a mask or cover your face in public when social distancing is not possible. Even personally, my oldest daughter lives in Melbourne with her family, and they have been locked down in stage 4 since the beginning of August. So, unless you are an essential worker, they can only leave their house for these reasons: shopping for food and essential items, caregiving, of course, and daily exercise. But it only means 1 hour per day, and you have to exercise within 5 kilometers of your residence. And there is also a curfew between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. every day. So, saying that, we are very lucky in our nation that we do not have these restrictions. The reason why say this is because it creates a tremendous opportunity for hackers, and it's not likely that cyber criminals will cut us a break during this difficult time of quarantine and pandemic outbreak. Also, many cyber criminals who breach and ransom as a side job are now forced to ransomware as a service full time. They probably got laid off from their full-time job, leaving them with more time and motivation to make up their income elsewhere. Hackers have to support their family too. This is a prime circumstance for increased cyber attacks. Cybercrime, as we know, is a rising criminal industry. It's very lucrative. It's very safe for the criminal. All you need is an internet connection and a computer to use, and it is relatively guilt-free. You see, with certain crimes, you have to be a certain type of person, literally have a criminal mind, but not with cybercrime. Even ransomware as a service is now mainstream, and there are many sites on the dark web and even the regular web to show you how to create ransomware. They will even provide you with an email list. So if hackers get caught, they just say it's their fee for providing a cybersecurity service for detection and recovery. Cybercrime is now the most lucrative criminal activity worldwide, and it actually passed illegal drug crimes in 2014. As we know, business are at an increased risk. Your data protection is costing you time if you do not have the right protection. And this is called the perfect data storm, which is a combination of three main factors. Of course, there's more data everywhere. With that, customer expectation is rising, and with that comes the risk of losing all your data. So time is not just about you, it's your employees' time and also your company's time. Downtime, everyone is down. So what we're talking about today, this is everyone's time. And even with this slide, very important slide that I always emphasize, and it is more, we provide more emphasis on this because of the coronavirus, and everyone is vulnerable. And the most important laws of cybersecurity: if you have data, you have cyber risk. And if you have a vulnerability, it will be exploited. And as we know, regardless of what we do, humans will always be the most weakest of links in our organization, and humans are far more vulnerable than technology. So let's take a look at some of the recent data breaches and compromises. Since the start of the pandemic, there have been a massive increase in cyber attacks in our country. Even scams related to CERB, which the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit, and CEWS, the Canadian Emergency Relief Subsidy. Canada has taken down over 2,500 COVID-19 themed fraudulent sites or email addresses aimed at Canadians and Americans. The cybersecurity threat landscape is increasing daily. Every day, we see something on the successful attacks against business, large and small. Some of the major attacks over the last couple of years, as we see here, MGM Hotels. MGM, just a few months ago, it was announced that they were the victim of a ransomware attack, where over 10.6 million users who stayed at the MGM Resorts Hotel credentials were published on the dark web. Besides details of regular tourists, personal details including leaked files, and also personal and contact details of celebrities, tech CEOs, reporters, and government officials. Even Facebook, just September of last year, 420 million Facebook has been compromised. And the thing is with Facebook, they have definitely been compromised quite a couple times. A lot of financial institutions like Desjardins Group, about 4.2 million records leaked by a single employee in June of 2019. The hackers know definitely what's in your pocket. Car dealers like Toyota and Lexus. Toyota, 3.1 million in April of just last year. And Capital One, I think we all heard about this one, where over 100 million people from the US and about 6 million from Canada. And this was from just a former Amazon employee who was responsible for the compromise. And what was stolen? Well, your social insurance number, your credit score, your personal and financial info, your date of birth, and of course, your full name. And there's even another hotel chain where called the Marriott Hotel, where 383 million, and that was from November of 2018. And they just got hit again this past March. So just 16 months apart, two of their employees were the victim of a phishing attack and disclosed records of many people who stay at their hotels. Of course, on the list, there are other notable companies like Microsoft, Twitter, Instagram, and even LinkedIn. They've all been breached. So all our social media accounts definitely are on this list. Even the Canada Revenue Agency, we just learned about this one just a couple weeks ago, where victims of two cyber attacks in mid-August of this year, yes, just this year, their online services were shut down for several days, so no one could log into your CRA account. Thousands of accounts were compromised. It was around 5,000 accounts. And what did they use? What did the bad actor use? Well, something called credential stuffing. So really, what are they using? Reuse username and passwords collected from previous hacks found on the dark web. So what the bad actors prey on people using the same username and password across different sites. And we will be talking about proper password best policies. At least one victim says someone hacked into their CRA account and successfully applied for the 2,000 per month Canada Emergency Relief Benefit for COVID-19, of course. We also learned about Twitter. On July 15th, multiple verified Twitter accounts linked with public figures and companies were hijacked. This was a phone spear phishing attack targeted just a few of Twitter employees. Hackers posed as Twitter's security team to obtain the credentials to access internal systems. So the hackers tweeted from about 45 accounts and accessed private messages. Victims include former President Barack Obama, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Even Kim Kardashian and Kanye West were compromised. Their accounts urge millions of followers to send Bitcoin to a specific Bitcoin wallet. So the attackers netted approximately 110,000. So to date, three people have been charged, including, yeah, just a minor, a 17-year-old who posed as Twitter's IT department. This is known as a social engineering attack. So in this time, it was just a bunch of kids fooling around and they were able to hack Twitter. Obviously, this could have been a lot worse. Even recently, we learned of the Canadian Professional Accountants of Canada. So the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada says a cyber attack on its website affected the personal information of more than 329,000 members and stakeholders. So CPA National says the information includes name, your address, your email, your employer names, but that passwords and credit card numbers were protected by encryption. So that was good. They also warned the data could be used in email phishing scams. So definitely your data protection makes sure business keep moving regardless of what it is, virus, ransomware, server crash, pandemic. It is not a matter of if, but when. Again, this is a conversation we have to have with all staff. The statistics say that 91% of cyber attacks start with a phishing email. What I'd like to do now is hand over the presentation to Corey Evans. Corey?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, those are really scary data breaches. So I'm actually going to go over the surface web, the deep web, and the dark web. So now most of us have only heard of the dark web, but we've never actually been there. So let's look at how you can actually get there. So to understand that, we have to look at the internet as a whole. So in terms of the internet, we like to use this iceberg analogy as a visual representation. So looking at this iceberg, what you and I know and the common person knows as the internet is actually only the surface web, which is also known as the open web. So this is the portion of the internet that is readily available to the general public. And what this means is that the surface web is anything that can be found on search engines like Google or Bing, and anything that can be accessed without a password for free. So that's why it's also known as the open web, because it's open to everyone. So in terms of this iceberg, what is crazy is that the surface web only consists of about 4% of the internet. And you can imagine the countless number of websites on the open web, and this is just a small fraction of the actual internet. Now we move into the space represented by the middle of the iceberg, and our basic math will tell you that an estimated 96% of the internet lives below the surface. And 90% of that internet is known as the deep web. And no one really knows how big the deep web really is, but it's hundreds or even perhaps thousands of times bigger than the surface web. So the deep web consists of data that you won't be able to locate with a simple Google search. And it has some very common uses like emails, online banking sites, doctor records, university, scholarly articles, things like that. Anything that requires a username and password, that's what's considered the dark web. Sorry, the deep web. That's considered the deep web. There's a flip side to the deep web that's a lot murkier and sometimes darker, and which is why it's also known as the dark web. And that is represented by the bottom portion of the iceberg. So in the dark web, users really do intentionally bury their data and what they're doing. So often these parts of the internet are accessible only if you use a special internet browser, the most common one being the Tor browser, Tor. So you won't be able to access the dark web with regular browsers like Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. So what the Tor browser does is it anonymizes the user so the user can visit any website without them knowing who they are. And the crazy thing is that the Tor browser was originally developed by the US Department of Defense. But actually, the dark web isn't all criminal activity. It's used for an array of purposes. For example, journalists will use the dark web to help protect the anonymity of their sources, and the government may also use it in whistleblower situations. There's even a social media network on the dark web, and people will use the dark web simply because it makes them feel safe being anonymous. But unfortunately, the dark web carries a notorious reputation as the haven of criminals, terrorists, nefarious sites, and everything in between, which is actually true. So over 50% of the websites on the dark web is used for criminal activities. It is a huge marketplace for stolen data and personal information. After a data breach, any one of the ones that Ian mentioned, personal information is often bought and sold on the dark web by identity thieves looking to make money off your good name. So as we go to the next slide, we're actually going to take a look into some snapshots from the dark web and its virtual black markets. So just to show you how legitimate the sites are on the dark web, we've taken screenshots from some of the websites to share. So this website is called the Clone Card Crew, and it's a criminal website where you can buy and sell real credit cards. So the selling of credit and debit card information is very popular on the dark web, and this site sells information from $5 to $110. So this site is selling a full package purchase for the fraudsters, and that includes the stolen name, SIN number, birth date, account numbers, and really anything you need to use the card effectively. And they'll even discreetly mail you the card so your neighbors have no idea what you're up to. And you can leave reviews on sites like these, similarly to how someone can leave a review on Google. In the next snapshot, this is a post from a cyber criminal who is selling credit cards as well. So in this description, I know it's quite hard to see. You can buy one credit card for $11 USD, or you can get 2 million cards. 2 million credit cards by paying 200 Bitcoins, which is over 2.5 million Canadian dollars. The next example. Again, we have another example. Sorry. In this example, video call programs have become such a huge part of our lives amid the COVID pandemic. The most popular one, Zoom, is constantly being attacked. So just last year, more than 500,000 Zoom accounts were posted on the hacker forums hosted on the dark web, and some are going for less than $1 a piece, while others are given away for free. And just more recently, on April 1st, a collection of 352 compromised Zoom accounts were posted on popular dark web forums. The links included email addresses, passwords, meeting IDs, host keys, and names and the type of Zoom account you have. And you might actually think, what is someone going to do with access to my Zoom account? But since businesses are working through Zoom more and more, a hacker can listen in on confidential information and use that as ransom. Now, in the next example, again, we have another example of a hacker selling credit card information. And in this example, you can buy 300 business fulls of Californian business owners. So the word fulls is a slang term used by credit card hackers and data resellers, meaning full packages of individuals' identifying information. So it usually contains the individual's name, social security number, birth date, account numbers, and most other data. And as you can see, this post was so popular that for just 15 euros, it sold out. Now, in the next example, this is the last snapshot where you can see that IDs are also being sold on the dark web. So this fraudster is selling a German ID that surely will be used for identity theft. We can even see slightly to the right of the woman's picture, there are even rankings for the vendor. So this fraudster has a vendor ranking of level 5 and a trust ranking of level 4. So this website is protecting the buyer by rating the seller. I guess there is honesty among crooks. Let's go to the next slide. So we can see the dark web is very real, and you can even find a job on the dark web. So this anonymous hacker, called the Dark Overlord, is hiring software designers and system engineers on the dark web. And the annual salary would be $762,000 after a 90-day probation period, and increasing to over $1 million after 2 years. So people are making a career on the dark web, and it's clearly quite lucrative. So as we go to the next slide, I'm just going to hand it back over to Ian.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, when you look at that deep web, the dark web, as a matter of fact, it's becoming much more sophisticated, and there is definitely a lot of opportunity there for the bad actors. And the thing is, though, how data breach occurs when a cyber criminal successfully infiltrates a data source and extracts sensitive information. How are these breaches happening? If you take a closer look at the chart here, just at the top three, and we don't have a lot of time to cover everything, but phishing, more than 43% of breaches are due to phishing attacks. Compromised or stolen credentials, which is just 30% of breaches occur because of compromised or stolen credentials. And ransomware, we talk a lot about ransomware, just under 10% of compromises are due to ransomware. As we move to the next slide, what is ransomware? We hear so much about ransomware in the news today, But ransomware is a specific type of malware that gains control of your system and blocks access to your files. It can infect your computer from an email attachment or even through a bad website. And then upon infection, a ransom note pops up offering to restore your system back to normal in exchange for compensation, usually Bitcoin, what Corey talked about. First of all, if you do get hit with ransomware, we always recommend to never ever pay the ransom. And there are a couple of reasons why. Because if you do, the hackers know that they can come back and hit you with ransomware again. And the other thing too is there's no guarantee that you will ever get your files or all your files back. Just a couple of years ago in 2017, there was a ransomware attack, and this was the biggest one at the time, and it was called the WannaCry virus. And a lot of people were definitely crying. All files were locked, encrypted locally and on the server. The WannaCry hit early 2017, whereby over 150 countries and over 200,000 organizations were impacted. And this pretty much happened within a 24-hour to 48-hour period. And what was found, there was an exploit in older Windows operating systems. We don't talk a lot about operating systems today, but it's critical that regardless of what operating system you're using, either Windows, Mac, your iPhone, your Android, always make sure that you're working with the most current version. Make sure you're always applying your security updates. So if you take a look at this, if you see this on your screen, it really tells you what happened to your computer, why are your files locked, and how to recover them. And they'll even give you a chance to recover some of your files. But if you want to recover all your files, that's where you would have to register for a Bitcoin account and transfer Bitcoin funds to the bad actors. As we said, 91% of cyber attacks start with a phishing email. As we move over to the next slide, cyber criminals are trying to trick you out of providing personal and confidential information. Number two reason why data breaches occur, which is weak credentials. And we cannot emphasize enough, weak credentials are one of the leading causes for cyber theft today. And how many times have you heard someone say their password is password? How many times have you heard someone say their password is 12345 6 or ABC123? And you can name it, Q or T, you name it. And these passwords should never be used as a password. Neither should words like baseball, sunshine, Raptors, let's go Raptors, test, test. What we do recommend is for password recommends, there's about 5 recommendations. And if you follow these 5 recommendations, there's much more of a guarantee that your credentials will remain safe. One, have a different unique password for every account. Keep passwords tough to guess, so even your family members cannot figure it out. It's important to change your password often. Use a password manager app to help create and secure passwords, and also enable 2FA. 2FA is two-factor authentication. And what 2FA does is it adds an additional level of security. Passwords are cracked in many ways, from searching, manual guessing, someone looking over your shoulder, even to more advanced techniques like key logging and social engineering. And the thing is, with key logging, the hacker actually captures all your keystrokes because they've installed malicious code on your computer and literally capturing your username and passwords when you're logging into your email, your banking sites, and other private portals. This is why, again, we recommend two-factor authentication. Corey, I'm going to transfer it back to you so you can cover the next section, which is phishing.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, we covered the third and second biggest causes of data breach. Now let's look at number one, which is phishing. So what is phishing? So in terms of cybersecurity, when we're talking about phishing, we're not talking about the sport. It's really more sinister than that. So phishing is a type of social engineering attack often used to steal a user's data. It often including login credentials and credit card numbers. It occurs when an attacker pretending to be a trusted identity tricks a victim into opening an email, instant message, text message, or opening an attachment or entering their credentials into a fake login page. Let's go to the next slide. Phishing attacks are definitely on the rise. So at the onset of the pandemic, we saw a surge in the number of the phishing attacks. So here's a COVID-related phishing email from Human Resources on a policy update related to communicable diseases. So we're going to look at some of the main clues to look out for when you're looking at your emails. So number one, so who is the email from? In this example, you can see that the email address is fake. So you should be checking that right away. Number two, who is the email addressed to? So if the email is generic, like in this example, it says to all or to a username, it is most likely a phishing email. Three, check for where the links take you. Check for fraudulent links by hovering over that link. The actual URL will either pop up as you are hovering or display at the bottom left corner of your screen. And if you are not familiar with that link, do not click it. Instead, go to your web browser and search for that website. And number four, the sense of urgency. So hackers will create a sense of urgency to make you feel rushed to take action. Like clicking on a link or opening an attachment. Basically, the longer you look at this email, the longer you're going to figure out it's fake. So they want to trick you right away. Let's look at another example on the next slide. So here's another example from your company's IT service desk with a notice to all company employees. Similar to the last example, the clues to distinguish the phishing emails are pretty common. So the use of a fake email address. In this case, there's a typo on the domain, which says NN instead of M. A generic greeting. So it says attention all staff. And when we talk about generic greetings, we talk about how hackers, they send blasts to many people at once and they can't possibly know your name. So they use a generic greeting, and that's most of the time that's going to be a phishing email. Check for poor grammars and poor spelling. And again, a sense of urgency to act. And always double check the attachments. So never click on an attachment from an unknown or unreliable source, especially if you are not expecting one. Check with the sender directly to confirm they sent you an attachment before opening it. Otherwise, you run the risk of having malware installed on your device. Let's go to the next slide. The CDC recommends you take at least 20 seconds to wash your hands to avoid germs. And we recommend the same thing with emails. Take 20 seconds to review each email to avoid falling victim to a phishing scam. So let's just cover quickly 7 ways to just check for phishing emails. So number one, watch for overly generic content and greetings. As I was saying before, cyber criminals will send a large batch of emails. Look for examples like dear value customer, dear ID number. Number two, examine the tire from address. So the first part of the email address may be legitimate, but the last part might be off by a letter or may include a number in the usual domain. Number three, look for urgency or demanding actions. So things like you've won, click here to redeem your prize, or we have your browser history, pay now, or we are telling your boss. Sense of urgency again. Number four, carefully check all the links. Mouse over the link and see if the destination matches where the email implies you will be taken. Five, notice misspellings, incorrect grammar, and odd phrasing. So this might be a deliberate attempt to try to bypass spam filters. Number six, check for secure websites. So any web page where you enter personal information should have a URL with HTTPS, and the S stands for secure, and that's opposed to HTTP. And number seven, don't click on attachments right away. Attachments containing viruses might have an intriguing message encouraging you to open them, such as, here's the schedule I promised. So look out for those 7 steps. As we go to the next slide, I'm just going to hand it back over to Simon.
Thanks, Corey. Now let's take a look at protecting against compromises and how you and your organization can stay proactive. Cybersecurity is based on three pillars working optimally together to defend against cyber threats. The three pillars here are people, process, and technology. An organization needs to provide cybersecurity awareness training to their employees to prevent and reduce cyber threats, such as clicking on a link in a phishing email. They must also ensure that their technical cybersecurity staff are up to date on their skills and their qualifications. For processes, an organization should follow proper procedures to reduce the risk of cyber threats. This includes disaster recovery plans, where proper documentation is in place in the event of a disaster, such as a pandemic. So you should also consider how you'd advise not only your staff, but also your suppliers and your clients. For technology, by identifying the risks that your organization may face, you can consider the controls that you'll put in place to prevent and to reduce the impact of cyber risk. And this includes data protection such as endpoint protection, business continuity disaster recovery services, cybersecurity awareness training, and dark web monitoring, to name a few. Now, with all of this supporting knowledge, there's a very strong business case for dark web monitoring and cybersecurity awareness training services. With our dark web monitoring solution, we keep an eye on whether your business data has been shared on the dark web, and we provide you with daily updates and details if your organization has been exposed. We monitor the dark web 24/7, 365 days a year, and identify compromises throughout your organization. And then we report them to you as soon as we hear them. Now, today we're offering a promotion for our dark web monitoring service. Our promotion to organizations includes monitoring your company domain, your company's static IP, and any personal email addresses that might be related to your organization. We also provide daily compromises or monthly reports. Now, we typically charge $99 a month per domain, but today we're offering a 50% off promotion at $50 a month per domain. Now, we understand that some folks on the webinar might have signed up on their own, independent of their work. So we're also offering a promotion if you're interested in monitoring your personal email address, and the price is $5 a month for a personal email address. So if you are interested, please reach out to us. We can be contacted at contact@etechcomputing.com if you're interested or if you want to know more about the promotion. Now, with cybersecurity awareness training, we're offering you a complete solution that consists of a training course library. We've selected a few of the top common courses, an integrated learning management system, and a fully tailorable phishing simulator. So the training courses are interactive, and they include topics such as how to distinguish a phishing email from a normal communication, when and how to report phishing attacks, best practices for safe web browsing, and it also details the dangers that malware poses to an organization and preventative actions. With regards to the phishing simulations, they're sent out monthly to keep everyone alert and to train you on how to spot the warnings of a malicious email. It's also a really good way to measure how vulnerable your company is to a phishing attack. So we also have a promotion today for our cybersecurity awareness training program. So for an organization, this would include a presentation on cybersecurity risks and best practices to your staff in a webinar format. Also 3 monthly phishing emails and 3 e-learning modules. So the topics would cover phishing, safe web browsing, and malware awareness. For this package, we typically charge about $750 setup fee plus $35 per user for the entire package. But today we're actually going to be waiving the $750 fee and offering the package to actually a reduced rate of $30 per user. And for those of you who are independent from your work, we're offering a promotion as well. It would be $25 per user, and you would get 5 e-learning modules. And the topics would include phishing, social engineering, malware, safe web browsing, and password security. So again, if you're interested in any of these promotions, please reach out to us at contact@etechcomputing.com. Now, major events like the coronavirus pandemic creates new opportunities for cyber criminals to exploit, but smart defense doesn't let it. So here's a summary of the top 10 tips to keep cyber criminals out and to keep your systems and data safe during these uncertain times. So let's go through the tips. So the first one is get the facts. Stay away from the rumor mill and use information from reliable sources to make business decisions in chaotic times. The second tip is to always think twice before clicking on links. So make sure that everyone is aware and on the lookout for suspicious links that can lead to ransomware. The third tip is to be suspicious of expected attachments. So make sure you only open attachments from proven, trusted, reliable sources, no matter how official or how real the attachment may look. The fourth tip is to automate compliance. So just one less thing to worry about by choosing a dynamic web portal system to keep track of everything. The fifth step, very important, encourage safe password practices like using a password manager and not just writing down your passwords on a sticky note and then leaving them on your desk or just sticking them to the actual laptop. The sixth tip is to beware of strange networks. So make everyone aware of the dangers of logging in from unsecured public and home Wi-Fi networks and how to use them safely. So as a tip, say you're at an airport, a coffee shop, shopping mall using free Wi-Fi, don't do anything on your device where you're entering confidential information like going onto your banking site or entering your credit card information. The seventh tip, very, very important, is to use two-factor authentication. It's an extra layer of security that keeps your passwords and your data safe. The eighth tip, keep an eye on the bad guys. So monitor the dark web to watch for company data so a problem can be addressed before it becomes a crisis. And we can help you with that one. The ninth tip is to stay current on the threats. Work with a responsive partner that's on top of today's challenges. And the 10th tip is to ask for help. So consult with a security expert to plan effective strategies and get innovative solutions. And this concludes our webinar. If you do have any questions, please enter them into the chat. We're happy to answer. And don't forget, we do have a draw for a $25 Amazon gift card, so do stick around till the very end.
Hi, Simon. It's Ian here.
Yeah.
The fifth tip was about passwords. And I personally probably have about, I don't know, 50 passwords to remember for personal and business. And, I try to be creative, but there's only so much I can, remember with passwords, with symbols, uppercase, lowercase. So do you have any best practices on passwords? Should we use an app to create passwords for us?
Yeah,
Is there any that you recommend? Are there any
yeah.
that you
So
recommend?
for sure. So definitely consider using a password manager if you have a lot of passwords, logins that you have to remember. Because remember, we're trying not to reuse the same passwords, and even small, short variations of the same password. Don't do that either. So password manager is, consider it an encrypted digital vault. It stores all your login information. It has one master password that you would have to remember. You'd have that master password, and you enable two-factor authentication on the tool. And some of the features that it does is not just storing it safely, but you can access it through multiple or from multiple platforms or devices. So from iOS to Windows based, you can use your tablet, you can use your mobile phone or your laptop if you have internet connection. And what it does is it also suggests strong passwords for you and stores all of those. And then when you're entering your login information, it also fills the form out automatically with your login credentials. So that's provided, again, you know that you have the master password and you're logged into the password manager. So there's a lot of features. So my suggestion is to go out and have a look at the pros and cons and see what works best for you. Some of the ones that are out there you'll hear about, the top ones are like 1Password, LastPass, Keeper, KeePass, and Dashlane are probably the top few that you heard about.
Okay, that's good. So there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
Some are built right into your browser, as you say. Corey, are there any recommendations you have if you're not using a password manager and really need to be able to, some tips to remember passwords?
Yeah, actually, a great way to make good passwords is, everyone has a favorite book, a favorite movie. Um, Try to make a password that's based off of your favorite phrase in that movie or book. So, if, for example, in Romeo and Juliet, everyone knows the phrase, Romeo, Romeo, where art thou, Romeo? I don't know if I said that correctly, but yeah, take the first letter of every word. You will remember that phrase, but it would be hard to remember that password, but you always remember the phrase, and that will help you create strong passwords.
Okay, good. We have a question from Lena, and she's asking, can I access public Wi-Fi safely with a VPN, like, for example, NordVPN? And yeah, we would say yes, because if you're on a VPN is a virtual private network. So the traffic from your computer to your website or your server or your cloud operation is encrypted. So once the traffic is encrypted, yeah, then you have now added that extra level of security that's required. And now in that case, yes, you can work on any Wi-Fi, including public. So yeah, so definitely if that is encrypted, then it's safe browsing. Those are additional tips for safe browsing. Also, another question from Lena, maybe Simon, you can answer this one. Is it safe to have an autofill, an autosave password on my browser? That's a good question.
Yeah, so if it's uh, it is safe. You might consider clearing your browser after you've used it. If you're using your own private, if you're using public, then I wouldn't do that. But yeah, so if you can have it auto-filled, that's something that it would do. And then again, consider clearing your history or clearing your cache after you've used the browser.
Okay, thank you.
There's actually
Okay, I
another
don't.
question.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think there is one up here. How do you know if it is a spam email? So an example, an email from someone you know who tells you it's spam, and the next day you get an email from the same person with a story for help. Uh, my, my recommendation is if you think it's spam, then reach out through another method to that person if it's a friend and confirm with them whether they sent it. And I find, like, personally, a lot of times now that happens. So if I send a text to someone, they'll actually send me a message separately or call me and ask me if I sent them something. So I think a lot of people are starting to be more aware of that, rather than just helping them out and sending them money when they receive a Facebook Messenger message. So if you think it's spam and if it's from someone I would say just contact them directly and through a different channel, not replying to that email or that message, and verify that they actually sent you the message. Did you have anything to add to that, Ian?
No, you're absolutely right. I think we'll just go on to the next one, which is you want to announce the winner for the
Yeah.
gift card? Okay. Oh, there is another question. Social media platform. So there's a question from another attendee. How can we further protect our company social media platforms?
For social media, I would say the best way to protect it is to enable the two-factor
True
authentication.
FA, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and especially if, for companies, you may have more than one person logging into your social media, because you might have a marketing department and there might be a couple staff trying to update content on maybe your company's Facebook page. So again, it comes back to our best practices around passwords. Change it often, use two-factor authentication, and make sure that these passwords are at minimum, 8 to 10 characters, with, of course, lots of symbols and uppercase, lowercase, so it's not easy to guess.
Yep, for sure.
Actually, I just want to add to that. A lot of social media networks, they allow you to stay logged in. I wouldn't recommend that because that means someone can get access to your computer and just go on those websites.
Yep, that's a really good tip. So always make sure that you log out. So some people forget, they'll just close the browser, but they haven't actually logged out. So that's a great tip when you're not using it or when you're finished using your social media tools, then just log out of them. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, we can move on to the contest. So we chose randomly from a list of the attendees today, And the winner that was selected is Pam V. Congratulations. So we'll reach out to you directly, Pam, to confirm how you can claim your prize. But congratulations, you just won $25 Amazon gift card and monitoring of 5 personal emails.
So thanks everyone for joining our webinar today. I hope we were able to provide some valuable content on the dark web. And if there's anything that you would like in terms of our services, please reach out to us and we would be more than happy to work with you. Thanks again and have a great day.